Hey Denver United kids, my name is Miss Katie, and although I was only with you for about 1 or 2 weeks before COVID happened and we had to stop getting together, I was really excited when Lucy asked me to do a devotional because it meant I would get to, or you guys would get to see me, and I hopefully think we'll be together again sometime soon, and I look forward to that day. Today we are going to be hearing a story about 3 followers of God. It's from the book of Daniel, and I'm going to tell you the story, and then I just have a couple of things to take away from the story, and then I have a challenge for you, and then a memory verse as well that we can all try to memorize this week. So the story that I want to tell you is about 3 men. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they lived in under the rule of King Nebuchadnezzar. And before I start, this story has to do with a furnace. And so I don't know if you know what a furnace is, but it's a very hot oven-like structure. And so I was thinking about this, and I was remembering when I was a kid how I would be in the kitchen with my mom while she was cooking up some dinner or baking or whatever it might be. And I always remember whenever she would open the oven, she would tell all of us to stand back. And I never understood why that was the case, but I learned later on in life when I was doing my own cooking or baking that when you open up the oven, it gets really, really warm and sometimes blows out at you, and it can be a little bit shocking with how hot it is. And so when you think about the furnace, or when I mention the furnace in this story, I want you to think about just the warmth of the oven, maybe in the kitchen. That was something that my mind went to as I was reading it through this time. So basically what happens in this story is King Nebuchadnezzar is in charge of everybody, and he set out a law that whenever this specific horn would go off, everybody would have to stop what they were doing and fall down on their knees and worship King Nebuchadnezzar. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, the 3 guys who were followers of God, they did not want to do this. They knew that they should not be worshiping anybody else besides the Lord, and so they refused to get on their knees to worship King Nebuchadnezzar. And the king had said, if anybody does not follow this, they will be thrown into a furnace and probably die. So when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were refusing to worship King Nebuchadnezzar or worship the idol that had been set up, they were potentially saying, I am willing to die because I want to follow Christ and I want to honor him, which is pretty bold and courageous and brave of them. So what happens is they refuse to bow down, and King Nebuchadnezzar then orders for them to be thrown into the furnace, into the fire. And they were taken by soldiers and they were thrown into the fire. And as they were in there, the soldiers that threw them in there started to get really confused, and they said, wait, I thought we threw 3 men into the fire. And the king replied and said, yeah, we did throw 3 men into the fire, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the soldiers said, there are four bodies walking around in the fire. And so everybody was very confused by that, the fact that there was 4 instead of just the 3 that they had put into the fire. So later on, they pull the 3 men out of the furnace, and when they come out, they have nothing wrong with them. Sometimes if you touch something warm, you'll maybe get a burn, a little bit of a red mark. That's happened to me when I'm cooking or baking. And when these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, came out of the furnace, they had no burns and no scars and no marks. Their clothes were all intact. So everybody was amazed at this miracle because they were in a furnace. Everybody watched them get thrown into the furnace, and then they walked out and they were completely unharmed and not hurt at all. So in that moment, King Nebuchadnezzar realized that the Lord that they worshiped, God, the same God that you and I serve, that we are children of, he protected them in this furnace because they chose to honor him and they chose to only worship and bow down to their God, not to these other idols or to King Nebuchadnezzar. So there's a couple of things that I want to remind you of and hopefully encourage you with, that as we are God's children, he will protect us. And then the other thing is that he is always with us. So God protected Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire. He didn't let them he didn't let them get burned, and he didn't let them get harmed in any way. And then the second thing is he is always with us. And in the fire, they only threw 3 men in, but the soldiers said they saw 4. So that 4th person was Jesus with them in the fire. And so whatever you might be going through, however you might be feeling, I know it's been kind of a hard, weird couple of months. It's really important to remember that as God's child, he is always with you and he will never ever leave you. So I have a challenge for you, and that is this week, whenever you have a moment that you feel really alone or like nobody understands, I want you to remember this truth, that God is always with you and he will always protect you. And then the second thing, another challenge, is to memorize this verse, and it's Matthew 28:20, and the second part of that verse says, "Surely I am with you always." And the I in that verse, that is God, that is the Holy Spirit, that is Jesus. Surely I am with you always. God is always with us, and that is such an encouraging, amazing truth for us as children of God. We never have to worry about being alone because God is always with us. So I hope you guys have a fantastic week. The memory verse will be down in the description of the video, so you can maybe write it out or have a parent help you write it out, and you can color it, put it up on your wall so that you can be memorizing that truth, that surely I am with you always. God is with us always, which is so awesome. I hope you guys have a good week, and we'll hopefully see you soon.